in
the
the
same
same
house.
house.
Welcome, 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 ladies and gentlemen, from wherever you are, whether you're in Cape Town, South Africa, Nigeria, India, Malaysia, Singapore, and Australia. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to each one of you. Today we have a wonderful session that are planned with two wonderful ladies who've been working in this industry for a number of years. I'll introduce them shortly. But before I deep dive into it, one of the reasons why we picked this topic called mind games, I need to sort of give you some overview on that before I introduce both Anda and Alka. Why is this such a concern today? Let me just share this with you and I'll take in some notes on this. The prime purpose of this discussion, ladies and gentlemen, is to get a better understanding of what mind games is all about. Why people are engaged in it, number one. Why people navigate through it, number two. And more importantly, how it affects relationships both in personal and in professional arena. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we deep dive into the psychological aspects of each of these mind game tools, techniques, and patterns that are out there, let me make sure that you understand where it also comes from the global scene. 21st century, according to WHO, World Health Organization, since 2019, this has been a major area in which mental disorder has been impacting people. Anxiety levels, depression, the impact goes enormous in areas of corporate scenes, personal scenes, and in communities. And note the analogy here, they relate it back to the AIDS epidemic in the 70s, the prevalence of the various forms of cancer. This mental disease has mainly impacted those past the baby boomer generation. What do I mean by that? The millenniums, 1981 through to 1996, Gen Z, 1997 right through to 2012, Gen Alpha, 2013 to 2025, and moving forward, the Beta generation, 225 to 239. The concern is when this goes, and it goes at this rate, today the state of mental disorder has scaled up at least tenfold since COVID, not since 2096, or sorry, I beg your pardon, 1996. It's since COVID that it's gone up that many times. And my point to many people out here is, as long as you're aware of it, you can then navigate yourself through it. My base pattern that I would recommend most people to look at, we will talk in detail shortly, is called the bar principle. Your behavior impacts your actions, which in turn impacts your outcomes or your results. So therefore, without much ado, let me just introduce you, open the forum for discussion with Dr. Alka and Anda. Anda from all the way from Cape Town, Dr. Alka from Mumbai. Ladies, could I have you just introduce yourself for a short period of time, and then let's deep dive into the subject itself. Thank you so much. Welcome, Alka, Dr. Alka.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much for having me here, for having us here. And the three of us make an excellent team to do some deep dive discussions. Looking forward to the conversations. Over to you, David.
Thank you. Thank you. Anda, introduce yourself, please.
Thank you so much, David and Dr. Alka, again for your time, for everyone watching us. Guys, this is going to be such an informative discussion, and I'm really so pleased that you have given your time to spend it with us. I'm Anda Grobler from Cape Town. I work as a human resources consultant and also as a future life designer. Thank you so much, David.
Fabulous, fabulous. Let's kickstart with the subject. What's your perspective of this topic called mind games? Anyone? It's open forum.
So, David, this topic of mind games is, I never understood what this topic meant until you introduced it to us, and we had a lot of brainstorming and discussions on this topic. And I thought like life was very simple. Life is what you say to somebody, somebody says to you. And when I listen to my patients and when I listen to the world around me, I thought that there is something else which is happening behind the words that people say, the behavior that people do. It's not so straightforward that that I used to think it was, and today I realize that people are playing games because they're not happy. They don't know what to do. They don't have a purpose. They don't have meaning in their life, and because of that, they want validation from outside. They want people to say something nice to them, and that's why they do what they do. In short, this is what I feel, and over to you.
Thank you, thank you. And your perspective of mind games.
David, in an HR role, we are exposed to the behavior and communication styles of all people in the company. And very often you would see, and previously we used to call this office politics because you
Hmm.
would see people behave in a certain way, you would hear them communicate in a certain way. But now that we've understood this process of mind games and what goes in it, it has actually just opened up the spectrum for me to actually look at people's behavior, identify if and when we're going to have a problem so that I can prevent that from happening before we have chaos in the office.
Sure. That's a hub in which it comes through in the corporate arena. Most don't realize it involves a lot of manipulative psychological impacts. And there have been situations, for example, where the male leader, the male manager, let's say, the male manager, the way he or she treats his subordinates, and especially if it's a female, and how that impacts a person in the work environment, hence productivity. We'll deep dive into that shortly. Moving into this aspect of the importance to explore this, what do you think has been a prevalent area that has impacted your area of work, Dr. Alka?
So, David, actually, when I look at people suffering in front of me, they may be having some disease, a non communicable one, a communicable one. There is a kind of a psyche which is being damaged. There's a stressful condition in their life. This could be the person with whom the mind games are being played. Also, it could be the person, the culprit who plays the mind games. But all in all, what I have seen is the suffering that they go through, the pain that they go. So each one of us is going through something or the other in our lives. We're all going through some kind of pain, but we don't have a place where we can non-judgmentally, where somebody will listen to us. And that's what we're doing in MRM actually. So when I look at my patients and they come and they tell me their problems, they're not telling me something else. Something else is biting them from inside. They know somebody is doing something to them, but they cannot go against that person. And when I ask some powerful questions to these people, I realize that someone else is leading their life and they are not the ones. Today, in fact, I had a boy who was 34-year old, and he was talking about a 26-year-old who died about a month back in his office. 26-year-old boy. Now, what happens is that his boss and he were having a tough time with each other, and whatever may be, the corporate culture everywhere in the world is quite bad. So the corporate culture is driving them to unrealistic targets, and the stress in him cost whatever cost, and he died of a heart attack. So this is something. It is like it is criminal. This is what I want to share, that the mental health, the physical health, the brain health, the heart health is suffering because somebody else is playing some game with you. Over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, and now moving on from there, continuing the discussion on corporate and in South Africa, for example, how is this impacting because of the, I would say, slightly disabled environment that's there? How is it impacting the corporates over there? And how are the managers now influencing their decisions and driving their employees?
David, I work for a couple of companies and I can see that the employees, because of the behavior and the manner in which they are either communicating are actually causing them to just completely shut down. They become distant, they become quiet, um, and a lot of them actually experience interpersonal breakdowns where they just totally detach from everything. And I think it's got a lot to do with the cultural misalignment that we have in South Africa, but also the ego in leadership. You know,
Mm.
many managers will say, this is my way or the highway. Whether it's right or wrong, it doesn't matter. And unfortunately, this results in a lot of disciplinary hearings, in a lot of unnecessary destablement of the working environment because it causes mistrust and it
Mm.
causes, like I said earlier, politics, where my job is to create a safe space for employees where they can perform to their utmost best, where they can be seen, where they can feel safe, and where they can be heard. And that is why it's
Right.
become so critically important to read people's behavior today.
That's why I started the whole analogy with the bar principle, and that's the trigger. That's the key point indicator for us to. It's like a thermometer for your temperature gauge. Let's deep dive into it from both of your perspectives. What are examples of mind games that you're consciously aware of?
So in my life, I have seen a lot of egoistic people, arrogant people around me, and I used to think that I can win them. You know,
So,
I can win with love and affection. My dad always taught me that no matter what the problem is in your life, if you give a lot of love to the other person or to a situation, you can do that. You know, you can get over any kind of a situation. But I find that there are some group of people which are not going to be affected by this your love and affection. Those are the people who are looking for validation. Their cup is not full. They're looking for something else. You know, they want someone to praise you all the time. You should be in the limelight. You should be the center of attention, center of the conversation, center of everything. But you don't have anything in yourself. You should also have something in yourself. So a boy or a girl can just speak. You know, anybody, a human being, can speak for a few minutes and become the center of attention. That is not mind games. But the narcissistic people I'm talking about are the people who are always saying what I'm saying is right, only what I'm saying is right. And this I learned slowly and slowly in my life. And I find that it may be very well off to, it may be easy to just turn away from this kind of people, because sometimes you cannot change the world around you. You can change something about yourself. So you just move away from this kind of people, because it's not possible to make them feel that they're always going to be right. I am right, but you can also be right. That's the way to
Yep.
agree in life. But that doesn't happen with these narcissistic people, and that's my experience about them. Over to you. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. And your perspective of an example or two of mind games.
you know, David, I think one of the best ones is always either silent treatment, where you've done something or you've asked something. Let's say you're part of a team and somebody isn't bringing their side to the table and you address it with that person then stops talking to you, no eye contact, nothing. What is that person doing besides ignoring you? He's masking his own insecurity, but he also makes you question your ability and whether you've interpreted him correctly. You know, so, and that emotional manipulation that happens creates such a toxic environment and atmosphere in the workplace because it makes the person that raised the question feel isolated, anxious, and like I said, second guessing their own intentions and their own actions.
Mm. Deep diving into that, let me use an example. Do you have an example that you'd like to share on a topic within mind games that you feel could enhance the understanding of the public?
Yeah, I think let's keep to silent treatment. If
Hmm.
I come to you and I say, David, I've noticed that there's some distance between us since the last meeting. Is there something that you would like to discuss with me? The moment I do that, I open up the opportunity for an open, honest conversation. But then, if you don't talk to me and the behavior continues, I would need to obviously escalate it to the next level. Um, yeah, so that silent treatment, that it's just a form of punishment rather than addressing the conflict directly.
So it's an avoidance methodology that they use just to stay away from it and hope it'll be brushed under the carpet and forgotten.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Excellent. Alka, your perspective. Do you have an example, a case?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So I come across a lot of couples, and I feel that the emotional regulation between a couple should be good if they really want to be productive and they really want to have good performance and joy in their life. And what I find is that some of the couples, they're doing very well in their office, in their job, and the work what they're doing. But when it comes to the personal lives, they're having a big, big, big gap. And when I ask them that, like, what can you do to bridge this gap? And they will say to me that she did this and he did that and he did that and he. And then I say that whatever you're saying is about the other person. When are you going to talk about yourself? So she says, no, no, no. The thing is, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that. So it's always a blame game that the couples are playing today. And very sorry to say that today, the amount of divorces that are rising in our country is something to think about. If we can sit with these little couples, with the young couples whom we are seeing in our lives, and we can explain to them, this is not something that you can easily work on it. By blaming the other person, it's a mind game. You're saying somebody else that actually it is, he didn't do that, that's why I didn't do this. She didn't do that, that's why I didn't do this. This is gaslighting also. You make the other person feel very guilty of what that person is not doing or doing, and put the blame on that person, and that person feels so helpless that he feels like, oh my god, really, I'm doing this wrong. Okay, let me see how I can correct this. So that's not true of actual life. Actually, if you can be very straightforward with each other, the couples, the life would be much better. So the rising divorce rate is something to think about, and how the couples are playing mind games with each other. Over to you.
That's interesting you say that, because I know we had a discussion a couple of days back on where couples were complaining about the amount of work that they're doing, especially the ladies in particular, saying, why should I come home and cook? Now this might sound very finicky, but guys, this is a crisis state I'm talking about. The reason why you should cook, it's got to be part between the both parties. One person doesn't have to take the responsibility. I love cooking. I get my dose chemicals up when I cook. What's your thoughts on that, please, Alka and Anda?
So no, the thing is that what's the intention behind what you're doing? If you're cooking for the house, for the husband, for the family, with love in your heart, you're going to feel happy about it. It brings joy to you inside you. But if you're doing it as a duty, I have to make chapatis, So my dad used to always tell me, when you're making the chapatis, you have to make it, okay? Either do it happily or do it crying. Both ways, the chapati is going to be very bad. So when you're happy, your chapati will be nice. Whatever you're doing for the family will be nice, and you will feel happy. So the intention behind today, the women, they're earning a lot of money, as if we were not. So they come and tell me that I'm earning so much of money. Why should I make tea for him? And you just try, no, make a cup of tea for him and just see how you feel. Just make it and just do it. And I find it so funny when I ask these people that, once I was asking them that how many of you in a group I said, how many of you like to be served a hot cup of tea? And all the hands went up. This is an experiment I was doing. And then I asked them, how many of you like to serve a cup of tea to the people in your life? Not a single hand went up. And that was shocking. That was so shocking. That was so surprising. They were all entrepreneurs. They were all working ladies. They were all earning women. And slowly, one lady, she got up and she said to me that, why should I make the cup of tea for that person? So I said, you like to have a cup of tea made by somebody else. So why can't you make a cup of tea for someone else? So she said, no, I will not make. Let the other person also make equally. If I make one cup of tea. So they're keeping scores, David. In love, there is no score. There is no score when you're doing something for somebody. It is something like you become one with each other. The chemistry is important, the intention is important, and the couples are fighting for no rhyme or reason. And I feel this has to be stopped. And because you started this topic, I'm just adding to this. So over to you. This is what I wanted to share.
And your thoughts on this, please. And I want to see what's happening in South Africa.
Okay, so in South Africa, we were completely different. In my household, everybody, my mother cooks on a Monday, I cook on a Tuesday, Len cooks on a Wednesday, Lana cooks on a Thursday, Friday we have takeaway, Saturday we braai, Sunday we go out for lunch. That's how we do it in our house. And every person feels valued because they get to choose the ingredients, they get to choose the recipe, they make the supper, they set the table. You know, I like candles and serviettes, so I get that every night. What a pleasure.
So I have
But
a question.
it's about making each other feel valued. That is actually at the end of the day the thing.
Exactly.
So I have
Exactly.
a question for Anda. In this screen of three people, David is cooking, Anda's husband is cooking, everyone is cooking. But in Australia and for you in South Africa, how many households men are cooking? That's my question to Anda.
There's a lot of men that actually cooks in South Africa, believe it or not.
They
There are
cook.
a
Oh,
lot of
really?
men. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Is it
that's
is
They
it
like
out of culture or is it conditioning?
yeah.
It
Driving the
might
men
be a
to
little bit of both, David. The men like to drive, but we condition them to cook and to experience in the kitchen.
Oh, golly.
What about David?
Good.
How many men in Australia are cooking actually? What's the
Um,
percentage of men? Yeah.
no, no. Actually, when I reflect on it, most of the homes, the ladies cook, but on the weekends the guys cook because they like the barbecue. In South Africa, they call it braai. They love a barbie, so they do that. They like outdoors, so they cook outdoors, camping and stuff like that. I don't like camping that much. I love table setting and eating from a table, not from a campsite table, but a main table. That's a difference for me. Okay,
Mhm.
but there are people who love cooking, and they go out and eat. Yes, so that culture is there, entertainment is there, but when we look at it from a perspective of this thing that you're talking about in India, I feel it's more culturally driven because of the, I don't know if I'm crossing boundaries here, because of the caste system, the difference in the communities, for a better word, communities, and also the difference in gender inequality is more pronounced in India than elsewhere, I gather, and that's why you seem to think that is the case, and I think it is the case because I was living there for 3 decades back and forth, and when foreign companies approach me to run gender etiquette programs, there is a concern because there's a disparity in the thinking between the male and the female gender at work over there, and 50% of the foreign companies that are there have all went for these type of programs to help educate, within inverted commas, that form of community so there can be some parity in understanding both the genders. Hence, disregard what we're talking about here, the mind games that one would play. And you'll see that is more prevalent amongst the male gender than the female in playing these games. And we know within MRM the number of, I was going to say the number of patients, number of members who have made that comment about, being mistreated or badly treated at work. That also happens in other countries, but not as prevalent as in India. Coming down, deep down to some of the examples of mind games, and I'd like you to illustrate one or two examples from your work environments. We've spoken about silent treatment. There is gaslighting that Alka touched on. Backhand comments. That's another thing that stands out prevalently. And blame shifting that you spoke of, triangulation. There are many others I can get into, but these are the main 5 or 6 key areas. Would you like to touch on a couple of them with some
Yeah.
genuine case studies that you've experienced?
So the thing is that when you are talking about office politics, there's always something like jealousy, okay?
Mm,
Envy or jealousy. If someone is doing very well in their life, if they're going ahead in their life, So there will be a rumor about that person. Oh my God, she's having an affair with the boss, or she's going around with the boss, or whatever like that. Or you link up somebody with somebody. This is very common. The other thing which happens is that backstabbing. So a person, like for me, it has happened a lot. That they confide in me, and when somebody confides in me, when I feel that she's my best friend or he's my best friend, I tell all my inner secrets to that person, which is a mistake according to me. And when you share your inner secrets with that person goes and tells somebody else in the office, she was saying this about you. Now, that was told in a minute, in a moment of privacy. It was told in a moment where I was sharing and unburdening myself. But that to me is not right. I have learned my lesson in a big way. So the thing is that the mind game people play is people trust you. They show that they trust you. They show that you can trust them. And the game is backstabbing because they listen to everything what you're telling, and then they put mirchi masala and everything on that, and then they put it over to the next person, and that is really bad for the reputation and for the mental health of this person, because I've experienced this, and that's what I wanted to share: the backstabbing and making a very fake friendship. It's called fake friendship, and the sooner
Right.
you realize it, the easier it will be for you to get out of that friendship, because that's not a friendship at all. Actually, that's what I wanted to share.
And in that backstabbing situation, you use the word masala. When they add the chili to it, that's when it becomes caustic. And then you're trying to run away. It just disperses right across the community. And guess what happens? I mean, you
Yeah.
begin to wonder, why the hell did I open my mouth, for crying out loud? I was only trying to be friendly to them, and that's the concern.
So we're looking
Driving
for
in from that. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, we're looking for places where we can share our vulnerability, David. We all want to share our inner truth with somebody. That's the need of a human being. That we want to share our sorrow, our pain with someone else. And when we find a person who is very, very easy to trust, but be sure that he's trustworthy. If you find that he's not having a good reputation, do not trust with that person. Do not share with that person. That's why I tell you that it's very easy to share with a stranger. When I go out in a train, or when I go out in the plane, the person sitting next to me, she will share everything about her mother-in-law. She'll share everything about her daughter-in-law to me, and she will tell me, "Doctor, what can I do? This is what I'm having. This is the problem I'm having," because she's not scared of being judged. So I think our duty is to create spaces where we can create these spaces where they are not going to be judged, and that's what we're doing in MRM. We have had this space where people come and share their inner problems, and that is healing. When you share your pain, that gets healed, that gets released from your system. And that's what we're doing in MRM. So let alone what people are playing with you, whatever game people are playing with you, but come and share whatever is happening within you. Maybe you'll find a solution to that. Over to you.
Yeah. And then the other day you were sharing with me about the office politics and how the father-son scenario that you've gone through in your offices.
Yes.
Without mentioning names or company name, would you like to share that perspective, please?
So, I work for a couple of companies where the father is the head of the company. He started the company many years ago, and now his son has come into the business, and they expect their sons to take over the business. And in some cases, it works really well, and in other cases, it doesn't work that well. And in this one specific case, the son felt so overpowered um, and minimalized by his father that he actually developed mental instability. And he was booked for a period of time to recover. But his feeling of self worthlessness is so big that he's got to do so much work. And yet he's a brilliant young man. There's nothing wrong with him. But he just feels that he's totally overpowered by his father, and his father doesn't value his opinion. Um, when his father would say, I do want my son to step up, I do want my son to take over the business, the one day, and the next day he would say, no, he's not right for the position, he can't do this job. So there's this politics between the two. Dad wants me to step up, but he doesn't allow me to do that. And as a result, I think I'm not good enough. So there's these kind of games that even are played between fathers and sons, and it's not just between distant people, distant relatives, or co-workers. It happens in families as well.
Extending that into families. Now, how do you think the mind game is applied and worked in family situations?
So, I had an interesting discussion yesterday with a cleaner at one company who was engaged to the son of the secretary in the company. And the engagement was broke off a month ago. And since then, the secretary has absolutely blatantly been victimizing this young lady to the point where she used triangulation to control this young woman. So she told this young woman she's coming in for disciplinary hearing with me, and that the owner of the company is extremely unhappy with her work, which is simply not true. And I sat and I listened to what is happening in this company between these two women. And I tell you, David, it is ghastly. I was shocked to my core that one person can behave in this manner to control another person with fear. And I sat back and I wonder, why is the secretary behaving like this? And I think number one, she's hurt because the engagement was broken off. You know, um, she wants to protect her son. I understand that. I've got two daughters. I also want to protect them. But I'm not going to belittle somebody else. I'm not going to victimize somebody else. I'm not going to put fear into them because my ego is now touched and hurt because my son's engagement or my daughter's engagement was broken. And that's the
Mm.
things that we get into contact with every single day. And it's becoming more prevalent. And I really think it's because people's emotional intelligence and people, or not their emotional intelligence, their emotional maturity is not always at the level where it should be.
Mm. And
That's
that's prevalent. You find that prevalent in a lot of communities. If they're not, let me put it this way, brought up or working in an environment where the EQ levels are high, because most people just banner everything under this tag called emotional intelligence, emotional quotient. But actually, when you deep dive on it, it's made up of three components, and that's what one should look at: the emotional
correct.
competency, just like a person getting educated. So there is an emotional competency tag, there is an emotional sensitivity tag, which is where you're just mentioning the case about the issue there between the secretary and the son and the girl that's broken up the engagement. And the last obviously is emotional maturity. Now, when you take that tripod, I call it the tripod of EQ. When you take the tripod, you then have this balancing act to play. And unless a person's mind is in harmony and in sync, they will be distorting their outlook to what they're trying to determine in it. And that's the cause of all these issues. And what we need to look at is how can we rationalize it? As whether you're a coach or a mentor or whatever it is, you still need to look and figure out how can you rationalize this journey such that it's harmonic for them. And many can't see
That's
that.
why it's. Mm.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, David, I wanted to say that's why it's important that we look at the behavior. We actually look at the behavior behind the behavior, if I can
Right.
explain it like that. Because
Yeah.
somewhere there's an unmet need, somewhere there's maybe fear of losing control, there's a wound that was never healed.
Hmm.
Alka spoke about healing earlier. And a lot of the time when people behave in this manner, it's because of past trauma that hasn't been healed.
Exactly. Exactly, and
David,
and, and that's the gaslighting. These type of items that come through are because of past trauma. That is only one. Low self-esteem is another, a
yeah.
huge component, and most
Mhm.
don't realize that low self-esteem creates this vulnerability, and therefore it impacts the outlook. Another is the power dynamics that both of you discussed earlier at the start,
Mm.
and we touched on the emotional competency levels. Now, all of these are contributing factors towards this mind games. If you can steer back into what Alka touched on earlier about the family aspect and how it's navigating with diseases, Alka, your patients that are coming to you, and
Yeah,
where families are not caring as much and at the same time not considerate enough, whether it's a young child, a middle aged person, or a senior person, how much of it is impacting the disease levels.
yeah. Before even going to the disease, I like to share something that parents today,
So,
it means it's not in India, it's everywhere. Parents today expect a certain kind of a behavior from a child, and if the child is giving that behavior, he gets a lot of gifts, or he gets a lot of love, and he gets the understanding that only if I behave in this particular way am I going to be loved by my mother or by my father. And that to me is totally conditional love, and that is a mind game that the parents are playing with their children to make them study or to make them do certain things whatever they want them to do. But what the child is learning is that if I want love from my mother, I have to do this well in my exam, I have to do this
right.
behavior, I have to not eat sweet, I have to not do this. And that's what is very, very hurting. The child should be given an opportunity that no matter who I am, no matter where I am in my studies, no matter how dumbo I may be, every child is not very intelligent. He may be a good drawing person, he may be a good painter, he may have something else in him. It's for the parents to find out what is there in this child. But instead of that, they put a lot of pressure on the child, and then the child gets into that behavior mode. And he's so stressed, David. Today, we see children today, they're so stressed. At the 15 and 16 years of age, I find one child coming to me and telling me, I'm calling him child because he's just in standard 10 in school. And he told me that I rather go to a chat bot and get empathy from a chat bot rather than go to my mother, because my mother is telling me you got to behave in a certain way, you got to do this, you got to do that, and she labels me and you're good for nothing. So I think somewhere we are wrong. We as parents, we as elders, we are wrong, and we are playing our own mind games. We may not realize it, but we are playing mind games with the children, with the people in our lives, and with our own selves. We don't
Mm,
realize it that what we want is actually something which we did not receive in our life. We want it from our child, and we're imposing something on the child that if I didn't become a doctor, let my child become a doctor. I've heard this from innumerable parents, David. I could not do this, I want my child to do it. No, the child doesn't want to become a doctor. He wants to draw, he wants to paint, he wants to do something else. You can't force him to do that. And that child, he starts thinking that yes, I have to do this, I have to do this, well, then my mother will love me. And that is the wound which is being created inside the child. He becomes a victim of his parents' behavior. Now, coming to the diseases part, when we are not emotionally intelligent, when we are victimized, when we are made to, somebody is doing gaslighting with us. So what happens to me? I feel that whatever I'm doing is wrong. I'm made to believe that. Although I'm in the right, I'm made to believe that I'm doing the wrong thing. Now that kind of stress is there in me, and a chronic stress sets in. I'm always, analyzing my behavior. Am I doing right? Am I doing wrong? And that chronic stress is acting on the hypothalamo pituitary axis and the adrenaline. It's called the HPA axis. It helps
mm,
us to increase the amount of cortisol and the epinephrine and the noradrenaline. And a completely stressful environment is created inside our body, inside our bloodstream. And this is called inflammation. It's called an inflammatory, like you hurt yourself, it becomes red in
yeah,
color. You hurt something and it becomes red in color. The redness is called inflammation, and that is known as inflammation in the whole of the body. All our organs are in that state of sympathetic tone. This, so what happens is, someone says something to them, they're ready to shout, they're ready to scream. And I feel very sad for those people, because they don't know what they're doing. Actually, it's a mind game somebody else is playing with them, and they're not aware of it, and they're suffering because of that. They're angry, they're ready to pounce at anybody. And this is the disease what I'm talking about, is the stress which is created, chronic stress which is created in their lives, in their bloodstreams, can give rise to blood pressure, it can give rise to cardiovascular disease, it can give rise to dementia, because the brain cells are dying, it can give rise to stroke. I just mentioned in the beginning of the session today, a 26-year-old just fell dead. For what? Why should a 26-year-old die? So somebody is troubling him, somebody is stressing him out like anything. So these are the things I wanted to share, that if we take care of our health, if we don't take care of our health, if we are not looking at the mind games, we don't know the mind games are being played with us, but the stress is still there, that I'm doing
exactly.
something And that's what we are doing here, that we are creating an environment, and we all have to help each other. Everybody has a role to play here. We all have to help each other, to understand each other, to empathize with each other, and to find out what are the mind games people are playing with them.
And the interesting thing, when that happens, you're in a state that you cannot logically navigate yourself out of the crisis or out of the situation. Therefore, what do? You react rather than respond. And when you are in that state of reaction rather than respond, the whole synopsis of can I make a decision goes for a toss. Okay? Now, when you're not able to make a decision, and it's in those moments when decisions are made that your destiny is shaped. Therefore, if you cannot make decisions in that state, your destiny goes for a toss. And so when you talk about divorce rates going up, these are the crises that happen. The same thing in relationship breakup, the same thing in issues that father son, father daughter, mother son, mother daughter, husband wife, all of these areas are covered under this umbrella to say, hey guys, let's take stock and let's be not mature, let's be sympathetic to listen. And I keep saying this, God's given us 2 ears and one mouth to use in the right proportion, but we don't. We seem to be using this a lot more than this. Therefore, we go for a toss and we react rather than respond, as I said. And your thoughts on this, please, Enda.
David, it's so true, but somewhere we need to actually start creating the awareness so that we can help people and teach them to communicate consciously, just like you say. Use this less, but use it effectively. And we must help people to break out of these toxic cycles and not just manage them. Because when we help them to break out of it, we can help them to rebuild their psychological safety. And that's exactly what happens between this father and the son. We need to help them to rebuild that psychological safety net for both of them.
Yeah.
And once we do that, we can help people to actually move forward with clarity, with courage, with compassion. And when they get to compassion, imagine if the three of us just throw a little stone in the river or in a dam and the circles that it goes out and out and out and out and out. How absolutely amazing would it be if we can start this wave of change in terms of mind games through the world and help
Hmm.
people to come out of that toxic environment, out of that toxic relationship, and be able to open up their vulnerability, knowing that they are in a safe, secure environment and that they will be heard and that they will be valued.
Hmm. That's one of the key reasons why this whole subject has been opened up,
Mhm.
primarily because, um, as Elka pointed out too, many people do not understand. They have just banded all of these issues under one umbrella to say, oh, it's just mental disease. It's not, it's one segment of it. And if you can hone in on this, which is prevalent now, especially with that generation gaps that I mentioned earlier, the years that the Y generation, X generation, Z generations are coming through. And the concern I have is unless this awareness is created, everyone is just going to roller coaster the way it is and think nothing is happening, everything is honky dory. It's not. And that awareness is the way to open it up for them and then let them look at platforms such as this, MRM, or any other platform that they can go and find a nurture person to help, not a mature, but a nurturing person to help support that. And then over time, be strong enough to be the butterfly that can fly. And that's the whole intention here. So you're 100% right in what we're trying to achieve here. And I hope some of the members are listening out there will then understand this is what they need to do themselves.
And
Good.
David,
Let
this
me move on to the next thing. Why do you think this happens? Why do you think people play these mind games?
it's obvious because they have low self-esteem. They have low self-worth. They don't know what they want in their lives. They don't know which direction they are going. They have no purpose of life. So,
You hit my nail on the head.
yeah, it takes a lifetime to find your purpose. But whatever it may be, when people are not sure of what they want in their lives, where they're going, they're looking for external validation. They want to be appreciated and they want to be praised by other people. And they just want to be visible. And that's why they play mind games. But what I want to share with you is that this boy who died, he was sharing his pain with some of his friends. My question to all the friends is that don't be quiet. Don't be quiet when somebody is sharing this pain of the office. So this guy who's put up a post on LinkedIn, he's from another office, not from the same office. But I'm saying that after dying, after your friend has died, and you put up this post on LinkedIn, it makes really very little sense. But if we could
Yes.
protect this boy, and if we could save him from committing suicide, he didn't commit suicide actually. It is not a suicide. It's not a mental health problem. It's a complete exhaustion case because his heart was troubled and he fell dead because he was lack of sleep, lack of everything, and too stressed out, and he died. But I'm saying that the people who are listening to him, the people with whom he's sharing his story, don't be quiet. Do something about it. Go to the mother, go to the father, go to the spouse, go to the person who is working, whoever it may be, go to another friend, share with another friend, and help this person. That's my message. If you can share this, because even if he has to leave the company, he has to think twice because he's earning his bread and butter from there. It's not easy for him to just leave the company and he has to look for another job. Even if he has to look for another job, he needs help from other people. So I'm saying that sometimes we are so helpless into what we are doing and we are just giving up our lives for the stress and strain and the mind games that people play. So this is a message for the people whose friends are in trouble, or if you're in trouble, and if your friends are in trouble, don't be quiet. Do something about it. Yeah.
Let me open up a subject which I've never shared in my platform with you guys previously. And this is a case that goes back to 2006, where I was a corporate trainer for this particular IT company in Chennai. And we went through 3 months of continuous different types of training to bring the employees up to speed with a certain quality work. Okay. I came back to Australia for Christmas. And I was having a beautiful dinner here with my family. And one day I get a call from the HR head of this particular company. And well, let me call his name John. And John asked me, Dave, where are you? And I said, I'm in Brisbane. He said, why? What's the matter? And he said, we need to run a stress management program in our company. Can you do it before New Year? And I said, what? Why are you requesting this? And you won't credit it. He said, I had this guy, he went for a wedding. They came back on their bike, six of them riding back. And I don't know if the foreign guys like yourself, Enda, would know. There are tea shops along the streets of India.
Mm.
And as they were riding back, they stopped for a tea, and we call it a 2 rupee tea shop. Okay, and it's great, beautiful tea. I drink. Alka knows that I drink a lot of those tea, especially with ginger. And they stopped for tea at the shop. They all ordered tea. This guy was sipping his tea. As he was sipping, he leaned back and just collapsed. Never got up. Okay, case one. So this HR person rings me up to say, we need to run this. And I said, my last work with you guys did not in any way indicate that. Guess what happens on the 31st of December? I get a call from him and he says, you won't credit this. I've got my accountant who was here trying to meet deadlines on submitting their reports because their parent company is a US company, submit reports. And we found him the next morning, keeled over on his desk. We thought he was asleep. He passed away. You talk about stress, huh?
Yeah.
Now, when I spoke, when I spoke to him after that, he said, we need to do something. So I said, I'm back on the first week of January. We will talk about it and we'll go through the employees. So we went through a deep dive into each of those 30 employees. What we found was the pressure and the push that was provided or given by each of the managers, senior managers, to ensure they met the deadline before 31st of December.
Yeah.
Work pressure meets sales pressure in each one of those components. That's not to say all companies are like that. Please, the guys out there listening, do not take that as a measure there. This is certain specific organizations where the push was done to meet deadlines. And this many of the employees don't have what we call you can cope with it. If you do not have what we're talking about, Alka and Anda would be very familiar with this. Self-care, your
Yeah.
morning rituals,
Mhm.
your night
Absolutely.
rituals. That is the trigger that puts back into us the body nutrients, the mind nutrients, and the soul nutrients that you need to survive. And that is the major cure for mind games that most people don't understand.
Yeah.
Unless you practice that, it's not going to come. We're not touching that topic here today. What is self care? But this is a component that causes that problem. And that's why it's imperative this awareness is brought out there to the public and more important to managers to ensure that the employees are self care. Your thoughts on that, please, Elka?
David, but the corporates today, all over the world, wherever you go, it's the same thing. It's only about PPP. It's about profitability, profitability, profitability. They don't see the human part. They talk
Mhm.
about they talk about human-centered leadership. They talk about spiritual leadership. But frankly speaking, none of that is happening. And if the culture doesn't change in the corporates, then the youngsters are suffering. We are putting the blame on the Z generation. The boy who died was a Z generation. And what's
Right.
wrong with him? He wants to earn some money. He has qualified himself. He wants to earn some money. So why are we blaming the Z generation? I feel whether it is Z or it is alpha or it is beta for the time being, we have to understand these people. And many people, as for me also, I did not know what is a mind game. It's only over a period of time when we mature in our life, we understand what's a mind game. We don't understand what's a mind game. If somebody is doing something to us, we don't understand that. So it is earlier that we understand what is happening in our lives, and the friends around us can help us to realize what's happening in our lives. Only then we can change the ideology and all of life and about mind games. Over to you, David.
Yeah. And your perspective on this area that we just spoke of.
David, I want to say to the people that are currently watching us, and that is going to watch us in the future, you need to start with yourself. Number one, you need to set healthy boundaries. You need to know what is good for you and what is not good for you.
Yeah.
And you don't need to take the bait. You don't need to entertain this kind of behavior, but you also need to stay true to yourself. So when something happens that does make you feel unsettled, and we have a practice that we call winding down at night, where we analyze our day and we do our journaling, write it down. Analyze what happened. Analyze, why did you feel the way you felt? Why did this person's behavior make you feel like that? How can you prevent that in the future? Don't keep quiet. Go and talk to, like Alka said, talk about this. It is important. And,
Yeah,
if you really feel out of control, go and seek help. Seek help from a therapist if needed. Seek help from your friends. But don't take the bait and don't keep quiet. It's
absolutely.
very important.
Very, very, very valid and important point. I will also add a caveat to that. Uh, Friends out there, when you seek help, make sure you seek help from someone who has that knowledge of it, and make sure you understand that person. I use this analogy, and that's why these two ladies are laughing. And like in India, whenever we want to seek help, what will happen will be, why I'm talking about India is passionate because I lived in India for the last 3 decades. They'll go to the neighbor next door. Okay, this guy is earning 10,000 rupees and he wants to earn 10,000 rupees. No, he wants to earn 1 lakh. He goes and asks his friend next door. The friend next door is also earning 10,000 rupees. Can that friend teach him how to make 100,000 rupees 10 times? No. So please go to somebody who has that exposure and understanding. And that's all I'm going to say. That's why I use the word caveat.
I want to say most of the times, when somebody is telling their problems to the other person, the other person is getting ready to tell his problems to this person. Yeah. So, like she says, "Oh, my husband is like this. Oh, you don't know, my husband is like this."
Husband is well.
So, most of the times, nobody is listening to anybody. Nobody is listening to anybody. People are just talking and talking and talking over each other. There is nobody who is having heart to listen to the other person's problems. So, really speaking, the truth is you listen to yourself first. What Anna said is so
Exactly.
true. Are you able to listen to yourself first? Listen to yourself. Write down what is wrong with me. What am I doing? Why am I doing? Why am I behaving in this way? Because nobody is going to listen to you in the way that you can listen to your own self. That is so beautifully told. And I'm telling you, nobody here likes to listen to other people's problems. They just keep pouring their own problems over each other, and ultimately there is nothing coming out of such a conversation. So we really need to search for those spaces, create those spaces where we can invite people into our lives and allow them to share authentically, genuinely, what is the pain you're having in your life. And I'm very happy to tell you that I have some very nice friends here right now in front of me, two of them in front of me. And also in my personal life, I have very, very nice friends with whom I can share my pain and who can tell me the real thing, that what I need to do, what I don't need to do, or just listen. We don't need fixing. We don't need anyone to fix our problems. We just need that somebody can listen to us very, very intently with their heart and not be judgmental about it. Thank you.
Yes. Now, before we go, I mean, we only got 2, 3, 4 minutes. I want to cover another aspect. I wish we could have more time. We might rerun and add on to this, deep dive on it, like what I always say. What's the impact? I want both of you to sort of consolidate your thoughts, what we've discussed so far, please, and think of what is the impact to the recipient of this mind games. How do you think he or she feels, and how do you think he or she would react, and how do you think he or she would have that, whether it's a disease, physical, mental, spiritual, impact on him or her?
So, if the person is spiritually smart, emotionally mature, emotionally sensitive, emotionally, one more word, he is going to react in an intelligent way. But if he is not that spiritually intelligent, he is going to absolutely react. And he might just say, "What do you think of yourself? And why are you doing this to me? And why?" And that can worsen the situation. Becoming a victim of a situation of a mind game can actually run you down and make you feel
Mm.
very low in your life and with low self worth, no matter how high this person is. But if the person makes him believe that he's nothing and he's good for nothing, that's how he's going to feel. So, developing a spiritual intelligence, your emotional intelligence is the way to go. Over to you, Enda.
Thank you so much. Yes, I think, if we think about the effect of mind games on a person and we go back to the examples that I've shown, number one, it causes emotional discomfort, distress, confusion, codependency, anxiety. It actually makes you feel crazy and insecure. So, why would I want to give somebody else that power over my life? And that is where you need to start, is to decide, why do I give that power away? How am I going to take it back? How am I going to set my boundaries? And that's why I said, it's important to understand what you want in your life, because nobody can make you feel worthless unless you allow them to do that.
So true, so true.
Take your
And
power.
back, yes,
Yeah,
hold on to it.
take your power back.
Um, that's succinct way of putting it. They cover a number of. I think there are 4 or 5 elements that causes the individual to think twice. As you pointed, one was self-doubt, and
Yeah.
that self-doubt is self-incriminating, and
Yes.
it spirals you down. I call it, you spiral down the black hole of Calcutta and you cannot come out of it. You know,
Yeah.
that's one. The second thing is the confusion, as what you just said, and that confusion causes that disarray. And that disarray is what causes reactive situations. And when it's reactive situations, whether it's at work, whether it's at home, whether it's even in a recreation situation, outbursts that happen, you cannot control that. So we need to ensure, as you said earlier, that wind down or self-care time is emphasized a lot more. The next area, frustration. How many people have gone astray because of deep dive frustrating situations caused because of mind games? Because they don't know anywhere else out of it. They don't know any other way out of it. So they're just stuck in it. Anxiety levels. And anxiety levels is the worst criminal thing that's there today. And what do? They go to a psychologist. With all due respect to some of the psychologists, they prescribe serotonin tablets. And that's great.
They should just come to Fire to Wire in the morning.
I
Quarter
know.
past 5 in the morning in South Africa, 9 o'clock in India, or quarter past 5 in India. And you guys are welcome. I will promise you, we will change and transform your lives. You will be calm, you will be collected, you will be able to respond to situations and not react. No, guys,
How
seriously,
true.
Fire to Wire and mental resilience will change your mind, will change your life.
How true. How true. So in a 10 seconds, that's all I can give you. How would you share your last thoughts to the audience? What would it be if you had to share it?
So my 10 seconds would be build yourself. Have a project for your life. Design your own life. If you're working on yourself, look at it as a startup of your own life. And when you make a startup of your own life, when you concentrate and focus on your life, you don't have time for anything else. No matter what people do to you, you are going to be a strong person. So be a strong person. Build yourself and your character. Over to you.
Thank you. And
Thank you, Elka. Yeah, I would say, we always say you are the director of the film of your life. Choose the story that you want to write.
Hmm.
Don't don't get sidetracked. Stick to your script. And when you do that, you will end up with a Grammy.
how true. How true. Yes, thank you so much, ladies. Truly appreciate your time and the pre work that you did also. I truly appreciate that. We will
Thank you.
look at locking up another one in a month's time on the same topic, but deep dive further. Ladies and gentlemen out there, I hope you got something from today's message. And at the same time, I do wish you well as we get into the weekend. Have a wonderful weekend. Take care. Sunday is a good time for self care.
Thank you. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you so much, guys. Take care now. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Everyone is gone.